Self is actually not a single thing, but it's made up of a lot of little things. Expectations of the society, the family, religion that we grew up in. How do we find ourselves? And more importantly, what even is a self? When we are overcoming trauma, when we are deconstructing from religion, when we are leaving bad situations, when we're becoming more independent, what are we doing? Like, what is the self that we are trying to find? As I have been going through my deconstruction slash healing slash overcoming trauma journey, and I have been trying to really dig down into what myself is, what I found will actually surprise you. I think there's like a storybook fantasy version of self that I think a lot of us kind of use as a definition, which is like, it's the most essential part of ourselves. It's like the way, like even as I'm saying ourselves, like there's so much built into the self idea. It's almost like digging through rubble or digging down in the ground and finding like this solidified self that's all fully formed. But I think what the self is actually far more fascinating, far more complicated than any of us know. And as we try to find ourselves, we will find out that what our self is not what we had thought it was in the first place. So imagine this is our self. And what we will find out as we start to come to know the self is that the self is actually not a single thing, but it's made up of a lot of little things. And as we start to go through the healing journey, we will start to break down and find out and analyze where the self comes from and what the self is made up of. And what we will find is that the self is made up of actually quite a few different parts, and a lot of the parts that make up the self aren't us. Us aren't us. These are expectations of the family that we grew up in. These are expectations of the society that we grew up in. These are expectations of the religion that we grew up in. A lot of what we think of as self, I feel, is actually things that have been either imposed on us, things that have been given to us, things that have been forced upon us as to who the self is. And once we actually can know that and start to break down and to realize that, wow, this was a big part of what I consider to be myself. Well, maybe this is religious ideas that have been imposed upon us. Maybe this is the ideas of morality. Maybe this is the ideas of even just morality in general, or, purity culture, or whatever it is. There's just so much that is what we think of as ourselves that potentially isn't. Maybe this is our parents. Maybe this is our mother or father's expectations placed upon us. And one of the things that I think is the most important about my healing journey as I've been going through is starting to realize that it's really, really possible that a big chunk of who I would consider myself to be, father, spouse, brother, child, all of that. Now, all those things might be true, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to feel or think or act a certain way or be a certain way because of those. And one of the most beautiful things I think about people that are going through recovery, people that are coming out of all sorts of situations, and actually, funny enough, the talk of self is so embedded in this kind of self-help culture, but once you actually are able to bring yourself out enough away from yourself and actually start to think and analyze, I think you will start to find that there are definitely big chunks of yourself that aren't actually yourself. And it's possible that 100% of this that we consider to be a self is actually just the constructs, a conglomeration of constructs of things that people have imposed on us over time. The beautiful part is that we get to pick and choose what to keep and what to get rid of. as we go through our journey. And once we are able to do that, I feel like we will become much more in tune with ourselves, which is funny because it seems like I said, every bit of language does talk about a self, but I don't know that we ever actually stop and analyze what our selves are and where they came from. So I wish you the best of luck on your self-discovery journey. And as you're going through, and the thing that I would say here right at the end is that you are going to be able to break apart what yourself is and put back together the pieces that you feel like still fit you, and to discard the pieces that you no longer think serve you, no longer think fit you, and most importantly, don't feel right to you. Thank you for watching this video. If you like these type of videos, go ahead and make sure you follow me. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.